Hello everyone, welcome back to Ties vs. Dies. Today we will be going over the process for a design that I've been working on that is a front diamond fanfold centerpiece along with a multi-diamond spine with a half diamond sleeve to wrap it all up and bring it together. Some of the tools that you're going to be needing for this particular design is washable markers. You're going to need rubber bands, sinew, floss, and patience. That's what you're going to need for this, so just keep that in mind, and we're going to dial it in together and I will walk you through it. And any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to ask them in the comments and I will get back to you in a timely manner. Thank you. Okay, so the main focus of this design is going to be a symmetrical finish, and to bring all of the main eye-catching pieces together, we are going to implement a trip style scrunch fold for the remaining body of the shirt, and this is going to give us a smoky, cloudy type feel to it, and that really brings together the shirt in a more well-balanced and even finish, is how I feel about it. And the reason for this is because we want all of our main eye-catching pieces to not be overtaken by the rest of the shirt, and this is how I like to achieve it, because even though the rest of the body of the shirt is not so eye-catchy, it gives the attention and it gives the focus to the fan-folded multi-diamond spine as well as the center diamond fanfold, and all while keeping a fun and interesting pattern that comes out different every time. And so that's why we like to implement that style of bringing the rest of the shirt together, and I think that it gives a lot of balance and it gives a lot of, honestly, a lot of fun and unique vibes to the shirt itself. And the reason for that is because there's always something different to see when we implement the scrunch centerpiece, and with that comes different faces that can be found, different shapes, different objects, and it's always something interesting and unique, and it's something that we can't really control. We can control some of it, but for the most part it's always something that the die just does on its own. So it's really like living art, because the die gets to just act how it wants to act. It gets to go and do what it wants to do, which is what it's going to do regardless, but it's nice to implement those things in a controlled environment, and so that's why we're a big believer in the scrunch fold for the rest of the shirt. And sometimes we'll go other ways with this depending on what we're looking for. Sometimes we'll do more of a controlled type design. We'll go with a spiral sometimes we'll go with geodes or nubs, and sometimes we'll just try to have it a solid color if that's what the vibe is. But for the most part we like to go with the scrunch because, like I mentioned earlier, that interesting and unique factor that is always different, but it's always something that is symmetrical, and it's something that's catching to the eye, and it's something that is different for everyone. That, 10 people could look at it and all 10 people will see something different in the die, and to me that's really fulfilling, and it's really what it's all about. It's all about the art. It's always nice to have people mesmerized or breaking their necks, which is also the main goal of this shirt here, and that's why we're going with the color palette that we're using. We wanted to go with something that was really bold and really bright and eye-catching, because for me personally, whenever I wear my shirts out, and to hear from those who have purchased shirts from me, it's always fun, and it's always self-esteem boosting, we'll say, to have such a eye-catchy and loud and bold fashion statement, if you will. And with that in mind, the color palette that we chose here is a brighter one, and we also implement some of the darker colors though to give that balance and give that contrast to the piece, because you don't want it to be just too much, too flashy, too bright. We want the pieces, the main objects in our shirt, we want those to be eye-catchy, but we want the rest of it to be complementing and kind of giving way for those more eye-catchy and unique pieces. And too much of a good thing is a bad thing, essentially, and so that's why we try to just limit ourselves, and in that we implement the symmetrical mirror fold shirt as we did in this project here. And we really go for the boldness of the shirt and the brightness of the shirt and the longevity of the shirt. And with that comes another point that I think that is important to keep in mind is, you know, your finished product is a lot in the prep work. It's a lot in what you do prior to dyeing your shirt or even tying your shirt. And again, it's a lot to what you do after you've tied it and implemented and added all your dye, to where you want to keep the shirt as saturated as possible. You want to let it sit for as long as possible. And what we personally do, we like to bag up the shirt and then we cook it for a while, and then we let it sit for 8 to 10 hours after, and that's how you achieve a really solid bold finish. And so on this shirt, we actually I actually kind of fumbled it, and when trying to do the second portion of it, I was trying to use some RIT color remover to kind of take away some of the sections of the shirt, so it was kind of like a negative, and I ended up messing it up, which I do often. It happens from time to time, and so the whole shirt ended up needing to be hit with the RIT dye remover, so that way we could clear the palette and attempt another round and another go at the dye application. Unfortunately, after we did the RIT dye remover, there was still a lot of the design that was still showing through, and so I didn't think that it was going to look very well if we went for it again, to where I ended up doing it on a separate shirt. But we decided to go with a spiral fold instead, so that way we could just really saturate that shirt and try to hide the previous design that we had fumbled on, essentially. And so that's what you see me doing here. And with any spiral fold, and really with any fold, you want to really saturate the shirt, really, you know, use as much dye as you possibly can. It may feel like you're going overboard with it, but in my experience, that's typically not a factor. You want to get in between all the cracks, all the folds, and really go extra hard on the dye application and the saturation of your shirt. And that also leads to the beginning stages of actually folding the shirt. You want to leave it a little bit spongy, that way it absorbs as much of that dye as possible. So that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you for making it to the end. We hope that you enjoyed. We hope that you learned something new, and take note on those very bright, bold, complementing colors, and take note on what you can do even if you have a rough start, even if you're off to a rough start. Just stay with it and stay creative and stay calm, and you'll end up with a very good result that you're happy with, just like we did here. And so as always, tie-dye the world, and we will talk to you soon. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and we will get back to you in a timely manner. Alright, well, thank you again. We hope you enjoyed. Alright, tie-dye the world. Bye-bye. Love you.